Bartolina Sisa Vargas, circa 1750, September 5, 1782, was an Aymaran woman and indigenous heroine who led numerous revolts against the Spanish rule in Charcas, then part of the Viceroyalty of Peru and present-day Bolivia. Alongside her husband, the indigenous leader Tupac Katari, she participated in the organization of indigenous military camps that took part in the siege of La Paz. She was betrayed and turned into the Spanish authorities, who later executed her. Honoring the date of her death, the International Day of Indigenous Women is celebrated every September 5 since 1983. Bartolina Sisa is often the name used by many indigenous organizations in Bolivia, such as the Bartolina Sisa Confederation, the primary union of peasant women in the country. Bartolina Sisa was born around the year 1750 in the indigenous community of Caracatu, Caracoto in Spanish, a village in the Real Audiencia of Charcas, Viceroyalty of Peru, the daughter of José Sisa and Josefa Vargas. She was still a young child when her family moved to Sika, where they traded coca leaves and worked in the production of woven goods. As it was common for peasant families of the region, she traveled across the Altiplano selling the goods produced by her family. Also in Sika lived Julian Apaza, later to be known as Tupac Katari, whom Sisa married and with whom she had 4 children. According to the Franciscan friar Matias Balderrama, Sisa was thin, of medium height, comely appearance, and great intelligence. During her early adulthood, Sisa witnessed the violence and injustice that the indigenous peoples of the Altiplano were often victims of at hands of the Spanish rule, which later motivated her to join her husband leading indigenous militias across the Altiplano to resist the colonial rule. Citation needed. In 1780, an indigenous insurrection of mostly Aymara and Quechua peoples took place against the colonial rulers of the Viceroyalty of Peru, led by Tupac Amaru II. During the uprising, Bartolina Sisa was given an important leadership role as the head of an army of around 40,000. Bartolina Sisa, her husband, and other indigenous leaders like José Gabriel Condorcanqui, later known as Tupac Amaru II, and the brothers Demasio and Tomás Katari were joined together in their ideals of indigenous empowerment and managed to gather around 150,000 indigenous, mostly Quechuas and Aymaras, to join their cause. On March 13, 1781, Sisa and Tupac Katari established a siege around the city of La Paz, then the capital of Charcas, and seat of the colonial Real Audiencia, with a force of some 20,000 men, later to be joined by another 80,000. The city is located on an enclosed valley with limited access, and the siege was able to completely block all movement to and from the city. During this time, Sisa organized military camps around all the mountain passes that led to the city and acted as the main command of the indigenous forces. On May 21, a Spanish military force attempted to dissolve the siege and capture Sisa, failing to do so. Katari and Sisa set up court in El Alto, and their army maintained the siege for 184 days, from March to June and from August to October. Sisa was a commander of the siege and played a crucial role following Katari's capture in April. After almost 190 days of siege, it was finally broken by a Spanish reinforcement force arriving from Lima, La Plata, and Buenos Aires. The Spanish forces received help from other indigenous communities that were opposed to Katari and that ultimately led to his capture. They were executed by hanging in September 1782. Bartolina Sisa was captured and executed by the Spanish on September 5, 1782. She was hanged after being publicly humiliated in La Paz's main square, now Plaza Murillo, beaten, and raped. Once dead, the Spanish cut her body into pieces, showed her head in public to intimidate the natives, and sent her limbs to be exhibited in different villages. In 1980, it was named in her honor the Bartolina Sisa Confederation, a union organization for indigenous and peasant women, with the aim of improving the participation of indigenous and rural women in the political, social, and economic decisions of Bolivia. Also, in 1983, the Second Meeting of Organizations and Movements of the Americas, meeting in Tiwanaku, decided to celebrate the International Day of the Indigenous Woman every September 5, the same day of her execution. Thanks for listening to Audible History. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and subscribe.